So now it's high time to discuss the global politics with my colleague, who's just in the opposite corner of, I've almost said the boxing ring, but the discussing table, Yuri Fizer, Global News editor. Hello, welcome. And what has happened in the world since the last Friday?
Hello, Volodymyr, and I must say that this week was quite busy in the world again. Support for Ukraine is growing. Russia is becoming more and more isolated from the world, and because of the growing discontent inside this aggressor country, it also looks more and more weak. Moscow lacks money, Moscow lacks equipment, Moscow lacks human resources, and every week it becomes more and more difficult to replenish this, and it's good for us.
Yeah, this is really good news. Really good news.
Yep. And especially if taking into consideration this huge amount of help coming to Ukraine each day. So about this and more, I will tell in my part of Spotlight Ukraine.
That's really good. And I've already announced that we do have the first African country who agreed to support Ukraine.
Yep, you are quite right. Countries of the world help Ukraine in its rightful fight against Russian aggression. And help comes from different parts of the world and even, as you have already said, from Africa. Morocco has become the first African country to transfer components for the Soviet-made T-72B tanks to the armed forces of Ukraine. The Ramstein format was used for such an interaction because Morocco is included in the list of member countries of the contact group for assistance to Ukraine. Morocco also consistently votes for support for Ukraine's territorial integrity during all UN votes. Even more, it is claimed that France supplied Caesar self-propelled howitzers to the armed forces of Ukraine, not from its own stock, but from an order package specifically for the ground forces of Morocco. So, thank you to Morocco.
Yep. That was my favorite football team, actually.
Yep,
just a couple of days ago, yeah. And what about Europe?
Yes, Europe also joins its forces to help us fighting back Russian aggression. The Eastern Partnership ministerial meeting brought together EU foreign ministers and their counterparts from 5 out of 6 Eastern Partnership countries. It was held early in the week under the chairmanship of the High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Josep Borrell. One of the main issues discussed by the ministers was security situation in Europe. Concerning security, the EU will continue to support those European partners who wish so by providing various types of cooperation and engagement, including on cyber, hybrid, and other non-military means to build their resilience and stability in the region. Of course, it means also helping Ukraine. And this is what Mr. Josep Borrell has said at the press conference after the meeting.
It's clear that Putin is trying to freeze Ukrainian people into submission, deliberately depriving millions of Ukrainians of water, electricity, and heating. This can be called crimes against humanity. These are war crimes. To put millions of people into the cold and darkness, willing to freeze them in the middle of the winter, that's a war crime. And the courage of the Ukrainian people deserves respect, certainly, but more than respect and applaudiments, what they need is support. And that is what Kuleva has asked us, with a concrete list of requests, from financial to military to training, support. We have to continue supporting Ukraine.
Volodymyr, may I ask you a question?
Yep.
How many friends do you have?
Well, if you combine my Facebook friends with my Instagram friends, it's like 600,000, but close friends are like just a couple of them.
So we have friends, a lot of friends. I mean, Ukraine has a lot of friends. As I have already said, the amount of help coming to Ukraine is huge. Help is coming from all around the world. Ukraine will additionally receive about 1 billion euros of aid from our friends. This was announced by the Ministers of Foreign Affairs of France, Catherine Colonna, during a press conference following the results of the Forum of Donors of Ukraine in Paris. According to to her, 415 million euros will be used to restore the Ukrainian energy sector, 25 million will be spent on water supplies, and 38 million will be spent on food supply. It is not yet known where the rest of the money will be spent. According to the French Foreign Minister, donors have raised more than President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky asked for during his address to the forum. And this money, according to Mrs. Colonna, will help Ukrainians survive the difficult winter. And now let us listen to what President of France, Emmanuel Macron, said.
Today, the main goal of the Russian offensive in the aftermath of the military defeats of recent weeks is to drown the Ukrainians in despair. It's about attacking in an unacceptable manner civilian infrastructure, to cut water and electricity, to plunge the population into darkness and cold. And so we are acting today to help them resist.
And now, Volodymyr, we are joined by our guest, Mikhailo Gonchar, president of the Center for Global Studies Strategy 21, to talk about Russian natural gas, or maybe natural Russian weapons against freedom and democracy. Welcome, Mr. Gonchar.
Hello to everybody.
Thanks for joining us. So, my first question to you is as follows. 20 countries are at least trying to reduce the price ceiling for Russian natural gas. Why and what are the prospects?
Why? Because governments of these countries very good understood what is main factor of gas price escalation on the EU gas market. This factor is Russia, Gazprom. Gazprom behavior, which took place during not only 2022, but last year. First of all, from the mid of summer, Gazprom escalated gas prices on the EU gas market. Consequently, we have absolutely abnormal gas situation on the EU gas market. Consequently, governments of these 12 countries supported the idea of elimination of gas prices because, you know, Gazprom had dominate position on the EU gas market. Now we have absolutely other situation, but high level of gas prices kept. So EU needs additional steps to reduce possibility of gas escalation.
Thank you. Thank you. And let's talk a bit about the situation with the gas in Ukraine. Is there enough gas in Ukrainian and European storage facilities to live through the winter painlessly?
Situation with underground gas storages in the EU countries is more or less fine. It means crash of Russian idea concerning cold winter, freezing of Europe, etc., etc. Our Ukrainian situation is more sensitive. Yes, we have minimal level of gas in our underground gas storage facilities, but I'm afraid that in the end of winter, especially in February, we will receive some deficit of gas. But I hope on the European solidarity with Ukraine, and it will be possible to involve more gas flows from the EU gas market.
Oh, Mr. Gonchar, but does Europe manage to jump off the Russian gas needle? And is it really painful for Ukraine? Or for Russia, sorry.
Main idea of Russia, how to provide changing of European politics concerning Russia. They want to provide some condition when Europe will ask additional gas supply for the EU. Of course, this idea is not new idea. If you remember, 1 year ago, we had the same situation. Many blah blah from Russian propaganda concerning very cold winter. Chief of Gazprom, Miller, was main chief meteorologist of Russia with some forecast weather, but nothing. I think this winter, which coming for us, the same scenario. European solidarity has more powerful than Russian undermining activity, from my point of view.
Mr. Gonchar, thank you very much for quite a positive prognosis for the winter and for Ukrainians in this winter. This was Mikhailo Gonchar, president of the Center for Global Studies Strategy 21. And at the very end, let's talk a little bit about European politics, or maybe about the European politicians.
Okay.
So, and a little bit about former Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel. Actually, about her, so to say, confession. The Cold War never really ended because Russia was basically not at peace. In her interview to the German Zeit magazine, former Chancellor Angela Merkel told about her initiatives back in 2014 to at least try to stop Russian aggression in Ukraine, namely about the so-called Minsk agreements. She said that, and quote, "It was clear to all that 8 years ago the conflict in Ukraine was frozen, that the problem has not been solved, but Minsk agreements gave Ukraine valuable time." This is the end of quote. Frau Merkel admitted that Ukrainian army has got a real chance to get stronger, and it is in fact stronger and can fight back Russian aggression. But she also said that someday this Russian war in Ukraine will end, and most likely it will happen at the negotiating table. But it is very important that the future peace deal should not be dictated by Kremlin. And it will not be dictated, and our army does the best to do this. So, this is all in my part of Spotlight Ukraine for today. See you next week, and now back to you, Volodymyr.
Thank you so much. That was Yuri Fizer, our global news editor, and this is Spotlight Ukraine. We continue. Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Latest news, trends, and analytics on all about Ukraine. Like, share, and subscribe. Any questions, proposals, and comments, contact us via email.